Hey, Horror Movie Night, we've got another fantastic fest conversation for you. This time I'm sitting here with Emily and Justin, who are the people behind Alone with You. So I watched the movie last night. It is a panic attack of a movie. I love it so much.
Thank you.
And I think what was cool about this movie, and I'm just making a guess here, but I think I'm correct, that this was definitely a movie that was made during a pandemic.
Yes.
But you didn't have to lean on the pandemic to explain the situation, but you were able to reveal very familiar situations that we've all gone through 2 years without it being a COVID movie.
That was very intentional. I mean,
very intentional.
When we were originally coming up with a concept, like, we didn't want to tell the horror story that we were all living.
We didn't want to tell Contagion. We didn't want to go into the daily life, because honestly, like we didn't want to watch anything. We were watching the news and we were just like, I don't want to talk about COVID anymore. It's just too. So we wanted to go into a story that would be evergreen even after the pandemic. Hopefully when all of this is behind us. So thank you for saying that.
Being able to take the themes that I think we all felt at the time. I think we had this collective freak out for a while that we wanted to take all the stresses, the anxieties, all the just kind of mental freak out that we were having at that time. And that's the story we wanted to tell. That's what we thought would be universal through well past the pandemic, but something people were really faced with themselves during that time. And that's the story we really wanted to tell.
For sure. And it's a great movie. Don't get me wrong when I say this, but like a movie like Host has an expiration date on it because so much of it is tied to like, hey, this COVID thing's crazy. We're all inside on a Zoom call. Versus with your movie, it's like you're hitting those beats. There's the FaceTiming. There's the trapped, isolated in the apartment, but it could have happened in 1986 or could happen in 2040 and it would still be relatable. It's just pulling from something that we're all very familiar with, which I think is really cool and unique.
Thank you so much for saying that. Well, and honestly, that is such a huge compliment, because hopefully this film, the first of a long career, hopefully for both of us, will have a long shelf life. And the core fear that I had, and I know a lot of us had. Thankfully, we were living together at the time and got to go insane together, but we couldn't see family. We couldn't see the people that define us and the relationships in our life. And when you can't be around those people that are literally the emotional structure for some people, for myself, you start to lose part of yourself. You define yourself by your relationship with my grandmother, who I see all the time, and my mother and my family and my friends. And so when they're not there, you have this odd out-of-body experience of like, is that real?
And I think it goes beyond,
who am I?
Beyond the pandemic and beyond being locked up. We have all been a part of that relationship that you've given. It feels like you've given a part of yourself. And when a big relationship has ended or shifted, you have to kind of redefine yourself again. You have to get your footing again. You have to figure out, like, who am I without this person? And I feel like those to us, those themes, that story was more universal. That was something that we were all really forced to face during the pandemic, but something we typically live through day to day all the time is trying to really like identify self without the identifiers of others, you know?
No, for sure. And I want to give a huge compliment to Emily because obviously wrote, directed, and starred in the film, but your character throughout the movie, like, it's to the benefit of you as an actress where early on you can tell that there's something not right. But you keep rooting for her regardless. You know that there's something that's not totally okay in this situation through the flashbacks and through everything else, but you're just like, hopefully I'm wrong. The whole movie, I'm like, I like this character so much. I hope I'm reading into these flashbacks. And I love that the character pulls that out of you as you want things to be okay.
I'm so glad, because there's no one else to look at for most of this film. So it's a good thing. Thank you for saying that. And I'm so glad that you empathized with Charlie. Obviously, playing her, writing and directing her, co-writing and co-directing with Justin is amazing. But that it's a totally kind of schizophrenic relationship with myself going into playing her, because my goal was, as an actor, I have to side with my character. No matter what happens, no matter who they are, no one plays a villain. You play the person, and you have to find. I don't think I'm a bad person. None of us think we're bad people, and so those have to be revealed through the audience taking in the story. So I'm so glad you empathized with Charlie, because so did I.
Yeah.
But I think even before the performance and before when we wrote Charlie, we wrote a character that we love. She's a part of us. Charlie was never meant to be like a hero or a villain. Charlie is a human being. Like many of us, we have deep love and we have deep flaws, and those are the characters we're attached to, because that's what we love watching. We don't want to see the good versus bad entirely. It's that like middle ground, that gray, that I think is so true, and we can all relate a little bit too.
For sure. And there's two things that I'm thinking of when I was watching this movie, and it's not that this movie stylistically feels like anything like this, but you have Barbara Crampton with this fantastic cameo, and there's moments of this movie that legitimately remind me of like moments in Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn. So I'm curious how much of like an 80s, I feel like there's like a little bit of an 80s schlock influence that's like mixed into this movie that is way more serious.
You've described our working relationship pretty perfectly. Justin is an encyclopedia of horror. I mean, he's got Pumpkinhead on him, like his tattoos.
Yeah.
I come from a very different, like, acting, story-based. So that is a huge compliment to this man right here.
Evil Dead 2 is one of my absolute favorite films.
Yeah.
And
there's a scene where Charlie is on the ground and there's laughing coming from one side of the room, and there's this repeated thing, and I'm like, this is the Dead by Dawn, swallow your soul, all of the animals have come to life on the walls moment of Evil Dead 2, and I'm like, the biggest smile on my face. I'm like, I love this.
Because we were trying to be so careful we're always so careful because I'm such a big fan. I'm such a big horror fan. And I could easily slip into that like homage fest, but that was, we wanted something that echoed, and it was almost kind of a little after the fact when we wrote this character, we wrote this moment, and then as we were going through it, I was looking at her. I'm like, I want you to watch this thing. I feel like this is close to this thing, and we did play with it a little. Sure.
And it honestly, thank you for saying that, because I think the way that Justin and I balance each other so well is that I can go full art house. I can go very obtuse to my detriment, honestly. And he is so marketable, like his ideas and concepts. And I honestly think that the combination of us writing and directing together,
Absolutely.
It brings depth, it brings character, but we also serve up some real fun.
Yeah.
There's some just real crazy moments in this that I would have never come up with on my own. And I think it's just a testament to like, we just really like working together because we balance each other out.
We're such different filmmakers separately that the films we make together, we would never have done on our own.
Yeah.
So they are a unique film experience unto itself. And it's so much fun to kind of balance back and forth, because we really do teeter-totter that like she's she's like, the monster is in the id, it's all self. And I'm like, no, the monster's in the closet. And we find that balance, and it's fun for us when we write together. It really is. It's almost like a visceral experience when we're creating story together.
Yeah.
We're typically at some point like on the ground, and then he's like this, and
write that down.
It's a lot of fun, and we get to see something entirely different when we work together than our separate work, for sure.
Well, and I think you hear the old adage, the film school adage of like a film is written at least 3 times. It's written by the writer, it's written by the director, and then it's written by the editor. And this movie, almost more than any other movie I can think of, you have so much freedom to rewrite it in the editing because it is essentially a one-person show with all of these ADR'd voices. So if you could have shot the scene of her just cowering in a corner and been like, I think we can throw a bunch of crazy voices coming from all these different areas, and you can just do it. You don't have to worry about reshoots. You don't have to worry about like bothering a bunch of people. Like you can just be like, let's just get a friend to record this thing and we'll loop it. And it's like, that is so cool. And it's such a thing that when you're put in a situation like shooting a movie during a pandemic, you're kind of forced to come up with creative ways to make things work. And I think that that's what I really enjoyed about this movie. I enjoy it as a movie, first and foremost, but I also enjoy it as like that person who never started directing movies, but went to all the film school. So I like to analyze the filmmaking, and like, there's so much in this where I'm like, dude, you could show this to a class and have them be like, and just have a full discussion of like, how do you think they did this? This is how you do something scrappy on a budget with limitations, like, and make it work.
A big part of that at the beginning was allowing us to have that room. Like Alone with You does not have a full script. We had this amount of time. So we were like, what's our main story beats? What's our main moments to hit? Like, where do we need to go? And then we can fill those spaces in as we move forward. And it gives us an opportunity to shift if the feeling is right, on the day. And I think this was, that's not to say this entire movie isn't very intentional. It's everything in there is intended. It has reason. There is not a single happy accident in there, but on the day, it always offered us the opportunity to shift if it felt right for the character. And
to your point, writing a movie 3 times, we absolutely felt that outline, scriptment, shooting, editing. But I will say this film feels like it was written 4 times. And I will say, to your point, through the sound design, our sound designers, the only people on set ever were the 2 of us. His father would step in as our COVID compliance officer when we had Emma Miles on set. He's a medic, so he would come and he would basically make us dinner, make us feel human for like 5 minutes, and we would keep going. But it was in the post process, really, with our sound designer and our Foley artist, our wonderful composer, Phil Mossman, that we actually got to work with a crew. So to your point, we had a blast in the ADR. Like, I had a blast in the ADR booth. It was a day that, and I'll be honest, I actually had mono at the time. I was like recording the ADR for this. I was so tired, Matt. Like, I can't even describe just the pure exhaustion, but the I was just like, I got to go for it. And you're totally right. We recorded so much, and editing that audio really wrote the movie for a 4th time.
We worked with our sound designer, Sean Duffy, who's this brilliant artist on his own. And when we work with other artists within film, it's very important for us to like first sit back and see them create their art. And then we'll tailor, we'll cut to taste, and we'll work with that. But we gave Sean, we spoke very broadly about like, here's our character, here's our story. This is the space, this is the colors through the story. And we wanted to see where he walked with that. And he came back with just this beautiful, kind of picture in his sound design. And
Yeah.
with then it gave us the opportunity to really dig in, to tailor, to edit, to really kind of tighten it up. But it was thanks to like everybody we worked with, Ward Crockett, our editor, Sean, the sound design, and Nicole, and Phil Mossman. Like everybody brought their art first and kind of inspired by the story, and then we worked together in editing these pieces together. And I'm just so happy with everybody's amazing contributions to this.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see the group effort, and you can almost see the camaraderie in doing something so small. So you're all kind of in it together. You're all equally invested. There's a Robert Rodriguez quote I always think of when he was making El Mariachi, and he said, "I knew I had access to a guitar case, a school bus, and a turtle, so I was going to put them in the movie." Who had access to the creepiest fucking mannequin I've ever seen in my entire life?
All the creepy stuff is his. I had actually just moved in like a month before the pandemic started. So every creepy thing is his. Now, I will say that apartment was filled with IP. We had to take down Evil Dead posters.
I'm a fan. So.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. No, but that mannequin, it's a beautiful mannequin.
A fun little, I actually got that mannequin at a prop house outside of New York. So it's a fun little snippet is that mannequin can be seen in an episode of Gotham.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
It's so creepy.
Famous mannequin.
I know. I saw that and I'm like, well, that needs to be in my house.
That mannequin should actually get like starring Bill on the poster, right?
For sure.
Barker is Barker. Mannequin is mannequin. Yeah, totally.
All right. So question from something that I just like to ask people who are filmmakers. Do you remember what was a movie, and it doesn't have to be a horror movie. It can be something that feels nothing like Alone with You. But what was a movie where something clicked in your head where you're like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life?
Oh.
I know mine.
You go for it.
And it's not a horror movie at all. But Before Sunset was, it's Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy. It is just this conversation throughout a day of these two people discovering one another. And it's this wonderful little love story, European setting. It's just gorgeous. But that was the first time that I saw a movie and I was like, I understand the pieces there. Yeah. Like I can do that. That doesn't say, there's no grand explosion. There's no like crazy thing to wrap my head around. That is a conversation throughout the film. And that was the first time that I really kind of locked onto something and felt like that was obtainable, like that I could do.
That whole trilogy is fantastic. Like,
and that's Linklater. Linklater. I mean, even starting with Slacker,
he's unstoppable.
There's so many, but he's so accessible as a filmmaker. He gives stories that when you watch it as a filmmaker, you're like, I feel I understand how to do this. Like this feels like I can be a part of it. And that was, I think, one of the first times. That and every time I watch a Trauma movie.
Yeah, like, Uncle Lloydie is the man. I love when I do San Diego Comic-Con every year, our booth is next to the Trauma booth. So I get to spend a week just hanging out with Uncle Lloyd. He's the best. How about you, Emily? Is there a film or anything, even TV show, it doesn't have to be a movie, but a moment where you're like, I want to act, like seeing something?
Yes. I mean, acting and filmmaking are a little different. I would say the first time I was like, oh, I want to act is when I grew up in Charleston, South Carolina. So the Spoleto Festival comes in and I saw a play and I was just like, I want to do that. I want to travel and I want to do that. But filmmaking, it was when I trained as an actor in England and I went to the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art. It sounds very fancy. The experience is not that fancy, honestly. But I remember being in the library researching a role. I think I had to do a dialect of some kind, like Scottish dialect, which was damn near impossible for me back then. And I remember sitting in the back of the library and and finding like a DVD, and I was just like, okay. The librarian told me that it had a good Scottish accent, so I put it on, and it was Morvern Caller by Lynn Ramsey.
Okay.
Lynn Ramsey is one of my all-time favorite directors. She did We Need to Talk About Kevin.
Just a brilliant filmmaker.
Unbelievable. And the film is so pared down and so desperately artistic and sad. And it is just such a haunting film. And it's not a horror movie. It's basically about a woman, a Scottish woman who comes home at Christmas and finds that her boyfriend has killed himself, but he's written this beautiful book. And she takes the book and repurposes it and basically puts her name on it, takes credit for it, and gets to go on this adventure. It's so dark. It's so weird. But it was lit in this sad way by these colorful Christmas lights. And I remember being like, how are Christmas lights so sad? Like, how are beautiful multicolored Christmas lights so sad? And I started deconstructing, not the accent, I forgot about that, but like the shots. And I was like, oh, there's a camera there. And a woman made this. And that kind of started my interest. It took me a long time to actually feel like I could direct anything. I'm not from a technical background like Justin, but I think that was the movie. Yeah.
And I think that it's very telling that in both of your picks, though, they are films that are simplistic and pulled back and reserved. Thinking of Richard Linklater, I think something that I guess only recently dawned on me, how insane it is that something like Dazed and Confused is as popular as it is when you look at it against film as a whole. It's like, it really has no premise. It has no real plot. It's just kids hanging out. You can feel that it's not fully scripted out. Like, all things considered, it should just be like a film that art house kids love. But like Linklater has that extra touch to make it mainstream somehow against all odds. And I see that with Alone with You. As Alone with You, it's a dream for a filmmaker, art house person, but it's also so accessible and so easy for this to like, I could see this being like a Paranormal Activity where it's like, look at what these people made for almost nothing in their house. And like, everybody loves it.
Well, I think a lot of what we talked about at the beginning is we both love a film that's a scavenger hunt, right?
Yeah.
And at the core of it, it has to tell you a good story. You have to be entertained. Like, we want you to enjoy the ride in the moment. But then we also wanted to give you a film that you could walk away from and start talking to your friend over drinks and disagree about some stuff, and then try to unwrap that together. And then you go back to watch it again. You notice a couple of other things.
I was going to say, I need to revisit this. I know I need to revisit it.
It was built very much for that purpose. We want people to be able to put themselves in that film. That's why it's one of the scariest questions that we avoid is, what happened?
What happened? Yeah.
Like, please, like, that is yours. That is.
We don't want to take that away from.
And it's not to say that we don't know what happened for us. We wrote with absolute intention. This is not some like, if you don't get it, then you don't understand art or something. This is.
No,
we wanted to give the scavenger hunt,
for sure. And I think that like, even on first viewing, you might not know all of the details, but you know enough. And it feels like to go into it deeper would be a different movie. You know what I mean? Like, that would be kind of more exploitative or grindhousey or but it's not about that. It's not about what happened. It's about the after effects of what happened.
Yes.
And well put.
Like, I think that's what makes it so captivating is it doesn't matter what started the storyline. It's where the story inevitably ends. So I could talk to you two all day about this stuff, but thank you so much. Where can people go? Obviously, you're doing the film festival circuit right now, but where can people go to see? Is there any other screenings on the horizon, or is there just a good spot for them to know when it's coming near them or when it'll be readily available for them?
Yeah, so we're playing all around the world right now. So the next screening that we will be at is Salem.
Okay.
So Salem, Massachusetts. That's October 10th. We'll be there. We're also playing Grimfest twice in the UK. I wish we could be there. We're playing Ramaskrik in Norway next month. There's one I was about to say that I can't announce just yet. But then our LA premiere will be at Screamfest.
Nice.
That was just announced. So I think those are all that we can talk about at the moment.
At the moment, but it will be the festival list is ever growing, and if you, I mean, I would say the best way is just follow us on our socials, and we're always bothering you with what we're up to, and then
Dark Star Picks just picked us up. So the guys at Dark Star have been incredible. They have picked us up domestically even before hitting Fantastic Fest. And we're looking towards a limited theatrical release next year. So
early
awesome.
2022.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I can't wait to see more of what comes from this, because it really is a truly fantastic movie. So listeners, go and check it out. Find out if it's playing near you. If you feel comfortable going, go. Absolutely check this out. I mean, Dark Star Picks has not let us down before. We had Zach on from Home Wrecker during the last Fantastic Fest. So they've given us nothing but quality content, and this is right there with it. Thank you again, Emily and Justin, for joining us.
Thank you so much
for having us.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.